Hello, everybody. In this session, we look at a format called JSON. What is JSON? What are the Python types versus the JSON types? How do you validate a JSON structure? Reading a JSON file, writing the new contents of JSON file, and appending to an existing .json file. So first, let's have a look at what is a JSON. So it's a exchanging data format. So JSON is a syntax for storing and exchanging data format. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Basically, it's a text written with JavaScript Object Notation, which is the full form of JSON. So Python is handling the JSON concept beautifully because it's having a package called JSON. And we have various ways of handling the contents of JSON because every data is represented in the form of text. So we'll see what actually this is trying to do. So you can see that, let me put the name as EMP, which is having the details of an employee, age, and the city. So I'm going to parse that string and I'm going to use loads, which will load the valid JSON string and convert it into Python dictionary. So the objective of load is to process or parse the valid JSON string and convert it into Python dictionary. Let's have a look at this. So I try to execute this in the high capability platform. So I'm executing this. So it is displaying 30. If I wish to print everything, I just say print. I can call by a different name, result. And you can see that it prints. So valid JSON string is converted into Python dictionary. We could also print the type to ensure that it has been converted successfully. As you can see, it's a Python dictionary. So this happens to be a valid JSON string. How do I do the verification? There's a website called the JSON link. I go there and I happen to place this string and click on validate JSON. So it will show me that the contents are fine. So you can convert the various Python objects into the following JSON string. There are 9. So can I convert a dictionary to JSON string? The answer is yes. Similarly, for list, tuple, string, int, float, notice that the Python, the Boolean value true and false, the first characters are in uppercase. So we can also have none type converted to the respective JSON type. Only thing which is not convertible to JSON is set and complex number. So if I try to convert a set or a complex number, it will give an error. Let's have a look on that. So let me have one set defined here. Let's say hobbies. And I use a set in this fashion. Let's say I'm using a Python set to check whether it is valid or not. So when I try to do the validation, it results into an error since set is not convertible. Similarly, if I try to use a complex data type, for example, So if I try to use this complex data type and check on validate JSON, it will give an error. So hence, the set and complex data type are not convertible to JSON. So let's check this out also. So we have taken all the contents. I go into the iCapability platform, iProductivity platform rather. So I'm having a dictionary, a list, a tuple, a normal string, an integer, float type, true or false. I can assign to a variable like is I bridged helped in building career. I put that value as true. So I'm using Boolean false and none type. So let me execute this. So you can see that I get the equivalent in JSON. So let me verify this. I just copy this, go to the JSON online editor, validator basically. I happen to put that. I have to ensure that the commas are put. And I encompass the entire thing as one object. And then I try to click on validate JSON. Data engineering course. So since it's a dictionary, I create it as one object. So it should be in double quotes, or I'll do it individually. I'll pick up the result got one by one to show that it's being. So I take this and come to the JSON link. So is this valid? Yes, it is valid. So similarly, I can go and pick each of these to check whether it is valid or not. So you can see that the tuple got converted to a list. So this also is valid. So similarly, we can try for all. So the dictionary is valid, list is valid. So Python tuple is getting converted to list type, string, string. So can we convert integer variable? So answer is yes. Can we convert the Boolean and the none type? The answer is yes. So the none type in JSON, it will be called as null. So we come back here. This proves. So the none type of Python is equivalent to null. Only thing the point to note is the Boolean true, capital T, is lowercase true. So let's try this out. So this is a JSON, and I'm going to use the dumps method to convert the Python dictionary into valid JSON string. So let's try this out. I go into the iProductivity app. So let me first print what type is this employee. So it's a dictionary. So let's cross verify. When I run this, it's a dictionary. So there's absolutely no issue with that. So now I'm using the dumps method, which converts the Python dictionary into a valid JSON string. So I'll put it as resultant as valid JSON string. And I'm going to print that. So let me execute this. So it's able to convert a valid Python dictionary into a valid JSON string. But I go into the online JSON validator to cross-verify whether the things are working fine. So I'm going to paste this, click on validate JSON. So let me just again paste that contents. I use the brackets. Yeah, so JSON is valid. So the output what I had got, okay, and let me again take the output as it is. So again, once more cross-verify. So it's valid one. Okay, so you can see that it's there. Had it been an issue, like for example, if suppose false or instead of null, this was none. Since it's not a valid JSON type, you'll get error here. So it says that it is undefined. So if I make the correction, I make it false, which is a valid data type, you'll get error at line number 10. Let's check this out. So you can see that again, it is undefined. So if I go there and make the correction, then it will be okay. So which is of null. Null is valid. So we look at other part of how we can do a reading of a JSON file. So employees.json is a file which is already existing with me. Employees.json, we'll have a look on that. I go into the command line, and to view that, you can see that it contains one data. So let's try to read that file. So in the earlier video sessions, we had learned how we can read a file, a CSV file, a text file. Similarly, so I go back into the idle editor and I'm going to execute this. So you can see that it's able to display the contents of the file. So the contents of the file is getting displayed here. Okay. So that means to say load actually loads that. It could be having any contents actually. So just now we had seen a valid JSON data. So can I put this data into the employees.json? Definitely I can put that and I can get to see that contents. It should be a valid JSON one. So I'm just removing the contents, pasting the content which is there, saving this file, closing this file, and when I'm going to execute, it should be able to read the freshly pasted contents of employees.json. So let me execute this. So you can see that we are able to read the JSON file. So it reads the JSON file, parses into the Python dictionary or list, depending upon the structure of the JSON file. So can we do appending into the contents of the file? Yes, we can. So we can read the existing content, modify the existing content by appending the data, write the modified content back into that. Let's try this small piece of code. So let's try to append something to the contents of the file. So let me execute this file. I come back and I'm going to execute this file. the file path has to be correctly done. So file path plus the plus symbol is required because I'm concatenating both of them. So it's going to put the contents. Let me put the contents of Avinash back into the file so that there is uniformity in that. Now it should let me just remove the contents of that file so that we could see that. Let's assume it had the record as mentioned as we were testing here earlier. I'm going to put that contents back there. So the file exists column twice. So if the file is existing, I have to append the new record of, let's say, the employee called Prabhu. If the file is not existing, it's going to write the contents afresh. So let's try to execute this code. So small issue there. So whenever we talk about a valid JSON, it should be in double quotes. Single quotes has got no place in the validity of that. So appending the non-list JSON structure requires more handling. So it's displaying this message. Let's see whether it is able to view the contents of that. I try to open the JSON file. So let's try to trace the code. It's giving the contents like this. Appending to a non-list JSON structure requires more handling. So I'll remove that file and let's see whether it's able to create the file. So I removed that file. I'm going to run the file. So it should be able to write the contents. So the control came back. It has successfully written. So if I try to see the contents of that file, employees.json, I should be able to see. So it has put the contents into that. So this way we can create the file. So to append, we have to load, we have to, means for the appending of the data. Now we can actually read this contents. When I run this code now, I should be able to read the contents of the file. I'm not printing that. So we can even print the contents of that file. So this way we can handle the JSON file. So we can append, we can add new data, means appending, we can create a new contents back into the file. We can have the indentation, how much spacing should be done. So this is the objective of this session where we saw that how we can validate the JSON structure, what is a JSON, how we can read the contents of JSON file, how we can create a new JSON file, and how we can append to an existing JSON file.